everybody, welcome to Let's Look at Cities in Motion 2. This is the new public transit simulator joint from the guys at Paradox and Colossal Order. I actually didn't play Cities in Motion 1, but this is the sequel to that game that came out, I think, a couple of years ago, and this is going to be available on Steam this week, probably the exact day that this video goes up, for $20. So one thing we got to get out of the way here before we even get started is that despite the name, I mean, the name is pretty representative of what the game's about in my opinion, but a lot of people are going to think, herp de derp, Paradox is making a SimCity city builder style game. I automatically like it a lot more because it's not made by those scumbags at EA. Well, this is not a city builder in any sense of the word. This is literally a public transit simulator. You're playing the job of, I don't know, some kind of like Department of Transportation dude. You're setting up bus routes, you're building bus stations, trams, trolleys, water buses, subways, etc., etc. So we gotta head off this SimCity clusterfuck that's gonna happen in the comments regardless at the pass and kind of stop as much of it as possible. Let's get started here. I've played about 4 to 5 hours of Cities in Motion 2, which might seem like I really enjoy the game. That's not necessarily false, but you kind of need to play that much just to understand what the hell's going on, because the tutorial, I feel, is not quite adequate to explain it. So I'm gonna jump into Sandbox Mode here, and I'm gonna start with unlimited money, and why don't we go to Central City and we'll just start it up. One thing I will say is that I really like the loading screen that we have here, of just various kinds of, you know, stereotypical public transit goers, denizens, if you will, getting onto a trolley. You know, I ride the bus. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I think it's a wonderful form of public transportation. I will say, I hate everybody who rides the bus who isn't me. But in any case, as soon as this loads here, we'll talk about what the F is going on and why I feel Cities in Motion is an interesting, simulator, but at the same time has certain flaws that I believe make it perhaps not the most exciting, engaging experience. It's one of those games where it's very, very, very niche, even for Paradox games. Like, I'm not sure, obviously if there's enough market for a sequel, then there must be people out there who are really into this style of game. Let's just go ahead and say that I'm not one of them, and this game requires a lot of self-teaching if you want to get to some level of proficiency. But anyway, let's start here. Again, despite our kind of interface, I have to reiterate, this is not a city builder. You can see the magma down there, the crust of the earth, if you will, which is kind of awesome. But in any case, this is our city, so we can see it here on this map as well. And our quest is going to be basically to make this a more integrated city by adding some more public transportation. So this is the Sandbox Mode. There is a campaign mode as well that I've had varying degrees of success with. But the Sandbox Mode basically just puts us in charge of a city that is already built, although it will change dynamically as we play. And we're just going to try to set up basically whatever we want. We could make the world's most absolutely batshit crazy public transit system. We could try to make something that's very efficient and keeps everyone happy. I guess, you know, on a very loose sense of the word, our goal is going to be to make sure our total reputation gets as high as possible. So let's just talk about the interface quickly before we get into building some bus routes, which is what I've spent most of my time with so far. If you look down here, there's like a build menu, there's a transport panel, I'll talk about that later. But I'm just going to show the data panel quickly so we can get some information about our city. So if I click on something like buildings, then you can see where the building density is in our city. So it's not, like, green might seem like it's a lot of buildings, red is not that many, or maybe vice versa, but actually there's a legend down here so we can see. There's a lot of workplaces over here, and over here, and over here. Probably like industrial zones. This is probably white collar over here. There's a lot of homes over here and over here. And, you know, we can split this up further as we see fit, like traffic density if we want. So, you know, traffic density seems to be pretty good. Let's take a look at students. And if we go to students, we can see, like, where the schools are in these situations. You know, like, these are the blue places are leisure spots for students, the red spots are workplaces, which are actually schools, and the green spots are where students live, so kind of strewn throughout the city. In any case, we're going to use this data panel to try to figure out where we're going to put down our first bus route. So I'm going to go back to, let's go to blue collar, actually. And we'll see. So this is probably an industrial area over here. There's a lot of workplaces. And there's a lot of houses right here. So why don't I set up a bus route that will actually start here and, like, travel along this area and eventually drop people off in this work zone. This seems like a good idea to me. I don't know, man. A lot of the times I feel like the game doesn't give me that much feedback as to what I'm doing or whether what I'm doing is good or terrible. But we're going to do it regardless. So building bus routes is basically the easiest kind of transportation you can do in the game. But that's not to say that there isn't a learning curve associated with it. So I'm going into the build panel, construct structure. We have buses, trolleys, trams, metro, and water buses. I have never successfully built a subway or a metro, despite trying many, many times. I think this is one of the game's fatal flaws. But in any case, we're going to go to our bus structures, and I'm going to set up a bus depot. And maybe we'll put this down here. at kind of like the edge of the level here. So I'm going to put my bus depot down right here. Now, what we're going to do after that is just start building some stops, and these stops are basically going to be where our bus will pick up patrons and take them to where they want to go. So you can now, as we place them, we can see what direction they're going to be placed in. So if we want to create a bus route going in the opposite direction, we can do that as well, but we are going to need to... oh, we've got a random mission there. I'll talk about that in a second. We can do that as well, but we are going to need to, you know, set up a separate route to make that happen. So I'm just setting up a number of bus stops over here. I'm going to have maybe... It'll go up this way. We're getting into the industrial area now, which is what I want. And then we'll just have a number of stops kind of in this industrial area. I'm just building a very simple bus route here. You know, I'm not Michael A. Fox. I didn't get a degree in urban planning, so I don't know if necessarily what I'm doing is awesome or terrible. I just kind of do it. I've spent most of my time, the vast majority of my time, in fact, with the Sandbox Mode in Cities in Motion 2. And, you know, so far I haven't blown up any cities yet, which seems positive for me. So there we go. We've got kind of a bus route here that goes on a circle. What we're going to want to do as soon as that achievement gets off the screen. I have unlocked like 25+% of the achievements so far, which seems crazy to me as someone who kind of still feels like he doesn't know what he's doing. Then we're going to open the transport panel. We're going to create a new bus line. We can call this whatever we want. Why don't we call this something that's going to help us remember the name? So James West. No, we're going to call it... this is the counterclockwise industrial loop. Oh, I can't make it any... Okay, we're going to call it CC Industrial Loop. This helps me remember. CC Industrial. That's going to be good enough for us, apparently. Okay, so line 1, CC Industrial. Then we're just going to add our stops. And the way that we're going to do this is basically just kind of connect the dots. So we're going to start here, then go to here. And you can see, if I zoom in a little bit, as I just did, the route that the bus will take as it goes along. Now, this is something that I feel like could be improved a little bit. The connect the dots aspect seems like it's something that could almost be done automatically if you wanted to play like on a casual setting. It just tell it to go like clockwise or counterclockwise and connect them all. And that would save me a lot of trouble because I spent a lot of time in this game just actually manually drawing these routes that I don't necessarily think is totally necessary. But anyway, so there we've bought the, we've set up the line. You can see it runs in like a counterclockwise loop here. We'll close this down. And what we want to do next is just buy some vehicles. So let's go buy let's buy 6 of these big buses, or 8 of these big buses, shall we say. And now, this should start running automatically. It might take a little while before we actually get people on. It will start. Okay, good. It is running there. It might take a little while before we get people on. So in the meantime, why don't we set up a bus line going in the opposite direction. So what we'll do there... Again, remember, we have unlimited money, so I basically can just do whatever the F I want to do. We're going to basically just send this going in the opposite direction. So we're just going to basically copy all of our stops. Like so. Oh, this is a 2-lane road. Good. Yeah, we're just going to copy all of our stops and kind of create our own clockwise route this time. I hope I'm going in the right direction. It feels like I'm kind of... I've separated it a little bit. That's okay, though. What I will say, again, I mentioned that I felt the actual connecting of the dots on the stops is something that can be automated. I also feel like setting an opposite direction of a route should be something that's very easy to do. Like, I feel like I should just be able to kind of click a mirror button and it'll automatically build stops and build the route for me, but sadly that is not the case. I think that would make things a lot smoother as well. So let's set up a second bus line here. By the way, all this stuff, it's a little bit confusing the first few times you do it, but it becomes second nature after a while. It might look confusing right now, but it's actually fairly easy in the whole scheme of things. All you want to do here is you want to zoom in and take some care with placing your bus stops so that you don't accidentally cause it to go in the opposite direction. Because if you do, that's obviously going to mess you up a little bit. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse pointer. I've got the big glowing circle there. I guess Steam just went offline and then came back, which is weird, but I guess not altogether uncommon for Steam. Are we going in the right direction here? I think this is... I've kind of messed it up a little bit, but that's okay. And we should have a few more, and it'll go back to our bus depot. Okay, so there we go. We've got 2 good bus lines. Well, good, I guess, remains to be seen. We've got 2 bus lines. Now what we might want to do is speed up the simulation speed and kind of monitor them a little bit. If we could just get some people on the bus, then I would be psyched. Because then I could kind of explain how we're going to get some feedback from the game. There we go. We have 1 person on this bus. We can get some feedback on the game and on how we're doing. So let's take a look at his thoughts. Vehicle was late. Bradley Lewis says the vehicle was late. If you bring this up, you can see lots of information about him. He's blue collar. You can see he lives in an apartment building and he works in a warehouse. Starts at the apartment building, wants to go to the warehouse, which is, you know, totally fair. I think that's reasonable. But we're going to need to take a lot longer, I think, to actually get... I did drive this through the... No, I didn't. I didn't end up driving or creating my my clockwise bus route through the industrial area, which is pretty shitty of me, but oh well. It's going to take us a while until we get enough, like, meaningful user feedback in order to kind of make tweaks to our bus line. But as you can see, you know, it's the kind of thing where it's going to move at sort of a glacial pace. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You could also say a methodical pace. This guy seems not so pissed. Waiting time was too long. Well, he's not angry. He's just a little bit miffed, if you will. And we're just going to let this bus line run for a little while. What I will do here is actually demonstrate some of the kind of meta stuff that you can do once you have a bus line created. So if we go to our economy panel, we can see how we're doing. So we're losing money here. We're making money on tickets, but we're paying drivers. We're paying energy, which I'm assuming is gas, maintenance, as well as, well, there's our total over there. So what we can do if we wanted to, we could raise ticket prices just by going to this ticket panel here, like so. And people are probably going to be pissed off about that, but we're actually going to lower it a little bit just so more people are inclined to get on the bus. And that'll raise our revenue as well. We could also, you know, lower our employee wages if we wanted to, but that's going to cause them to be pissed off, and the more pissed off they are, the less good they're going to be at their job. So this guy might start ignoring, you know, 5% of passengers, which is going to annoy people. So let's just keep that as it is. One more thing we should point out is that beyond just, Ducky J2, congratulations, man, you are pseudo YouTube famous. What we can do if I go to the build panel again here is we can actually define zones for the game. So right now this is going to be a really ugly yellow, but you know, if you don't live in a major city, what defining zones actually does for you is it allows you to kind of designate this as, let's just call this like Point East or something like that, even though it's on the west side. So Point West. Point West is going to be blue. All tickets within Point West are going to be like $1. But if you want to go from Point West to Point Central, then that's going to cost you $1.50 because you're traveling more. Basically, it allows you to kind of, you know, designate areas in the city as cheaper or more expensive, and then charge more or less for tickets between them, which makes sense. All right, so let's just let our bus line run there for a little bit. I'm going to get off this zone menu because it's kind of annoying me. And why don't we try to build a tram structure? Now, this is something that I've had middling success with so far. We should also check out this mission. What's this guy got going on? Hey, how do you do? My name is Andy Franco, assistant to the mayor. We've noticed there's an increasing demand for your services in the city, and we'd like to request that you increase your coverage if that's possible. Establish 10% coverage, 0% completed. Sure, I'll do it. I don't know what that means necessarily. Hey, I believe you might be able to help me. I've been trying to keep in contact with one of our CIA agents. All right, well, maybe should I not be broadcasting this on YouTube? But we're running out of places we can meet inconspicuously. A bus line would be perfect. No one would suspect two people who just happen to be traveling on the same bus. Could you help us out? Probably. We can also see some feedback up there. There's not enough vehicles in Bus Depot 1. So let's just, again, since we're on unlimited kind of money right now, we might as well just pump Bus Depot 1 full of fucking Jubilee Futurist buses. I think we can buy 10 at a time. Normally you only start with $100,000 if you're playing on normal, which is going to make things more and more difficult for you. But I'm going to ignore these missions for now. You know, obviously if you're playing a sandbox mode or a campaign, you're going to want to pay attention to these because these can give you money, and quick bursts of money, which is not always the case when you're playing Cities in Motion 2. But for now, we don't really need to worry about that. I'm just going to demonstrate the very, very basic mechanics of the game. So let's try to build a tram structure. Now, I've had middling success with this, and I'll explain why. This is one of my major pet peeves of this game, but it's also potentially a strength. And that is, there is a lot of self-learning necessary. There's a lot of times when, you know, there's certain conditions that you need to meet, and the game, in order to, like, create a successful tram line, for example, and the game doesn't tell you what those are. You kind of just have to play around and figure it out for yourself. So what we're going to do here, we're building a tram structure. We already built the depot. What we're going to build now is a bunch of tracks. So in order to make this work, you have to connect the tracks, of course, but you also want to make sure that your tracks are running along the outside of the road. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for you to place stops that people can actually get to. So this is a problem that really, really messed with me when I was playing through the game, or, well, not through the game, but when I was playing the game earlier. Also going to be a pain in the ass is if we come across any one-way streets and we find it difficult to get back to the tram depot. That's going to be a real fucking problem. But for now, let's just build this, you know, tram line traveling north through the city, I guess, if that is indeed the direction we're looking at here. I also wish that when you were building roads, it was a little bit easier to see, because when I zoom out to try to, like, figure out where my position is going to be, or where my position is, rather. It's very easy to kind of lose yourself in the music the moment you wanted. You're going to never let it go, etc., etc. But anyway, we're just going to build this. And, you know, if you're watching this right now and you say, Northernlion, this looks boring, then... Oh, I botched it a little bit. That's okay, though. You can reconnect it there. Then Cities in Motion 2 is definitely not the game for you. And I'm not saying that to be negative. I think this is a very interesting game in its own right. But it's also a very niche game. And again, I cannot stress enough that if you were displeased with SimCity, this is not meant to be a direct competitor to SimCity. This is meant to be, you know, are you into public transit? Are you the big kind of king dork who has, like, models of city buses inside of his bedroom? You fucking nerd. And that's actually, like, that's totally cool. I can see people being into that, you know? I'm into simulators enough in my own right. Oh, God, I botched it again. There is a day-night cycle, as you can see here. But yeah, if you're that kind of person, that's what Cities in Motion is trying to hit at. Not, you know, if you're looking to build this huge, sprawling metropolis. There are some similarities between the games. Like, in the Cities in Motion, your city will change, but it doesn't change kind of based on your... or it changes based on the kind of transit you create, but it's not really self-directed, if that makes sense. Like, for example, if I was to raise prices on public transit and make it not only really expensive, but also really exotic, like create a bunch of, like, sea buses or something like that, then I'm likely to attract more kind of, like, middle-class or upper-class clientele, which might change our city in the long run. But for now, I've successfully created a tram here, which is kind of, or a tram track, which is more than I expected to be able to do over the course of this. So now, again, we're going to rinse and repeat. We're going to come over here. We're going to build some tram. Oh, that's not what I meant to do, but thankfully we have unlimited money. I'm going to build some tram stops. So, again, I kind of wish it illuminated the tracks a little bit more. A lot of the problems that I have with this game are on an interface level, where I don't feel like I'm kind of able to see what I'm doing without incurring a massive inconvenience to myself. You know, I played this at PDXCon back in January, and we kind of had the same complaints then. And by we, I mean most of the people that were watching it. It wasn't necessarily that this is a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a game that is a little bit difficult it doesn't necessarily communicate all of its features in a way that is easy to understand for every end user. See, like, I've already sort of lost where my track goes here. There we go. Alright, then we're just going to come back down here. And again, if you're the kind of person that's watching this and saying, Northernlion, you're stupid, then again, this is probably the game for you. This is a game for, you know, people who are clever and are not afraid of a little bit of self-learning. Now, there's nothing wrong with self-learning by any stretch of the imagination, but to a certain extent, I feel like most of my time with the game, and we are like 5 hours in here, has been hampered a little bit by me not understanding the basic mechanics. Like, it really sucks when you're playing with not unlimited money, when you only have like $100,000. Costs you like $25,000 to set up a bunch of tram lines, and then you, or a bunch of tram tracks, I should say, and then you try to create a line, which we'll do right now, and all of a sudden you find, you know, if I just go here for a second, all of a sudden you find that you can't connect your depot to your first stop because you didn't put your tracks on the like edge of the map, and instead you put them in the center, and now like passengers can't reach them. That's something that's happened to me a few times. You know, it really sucks when you spend 5 or 10 minutes setting up a line, and then all of a sudden you find out that you can't actually connect the dots for some reason that seems pretty arbitrary. Where is my next stop here? I guess it comes down here. This is a pretty shitty tram line, actually. I have no sense of scale, like how big this island is right now. But hey, we actually managed to create a single line here that works. Now let's buy some vehicles. Again, we might as well just buy 10 of them. Of the Livingstone Classic here. Purchase those, and then this will start running. So I don't know if this is going to increase our percentage for this guy's mission here. But let's go over and let's check out our feedback here on the bus line, because it seems to be running fairly well. People don't seem super pissed off about it. Let's see what these people think. Citizen likes your services. That's what I like to see. Earl Dixon, smart dude. So this bus line is running A-okay, and all it took was literally unlimited money. Still, my total reputation is only at 50%, which is not all that good. But, you know, this is progress nonetheless. Again, people are probably like, Northernlion, you should take on one of these missions. Like, why not take on this very simple mission of building a bus line from point A to point B? The reason is, again, this game moves at a very, very slow pace, so even if I built a bus line there, it might take us, you know, half an hour to 45 minutes for that mission to actually reach completion, because, you know, she needs to ride it like 5 times or something. Now, we should talk about some of the stuff that's new in Cities in Motion 2 versus Cities in Motion. I should reiterate here, or iterate for the first time, that if you're watching this and you played the original Cities in Motion, you're watching the wrong video. I appreciate your support, you're a very nice dude, but you should probably watch someone who's very good at that game talk about the differences between that and this. This is much more for people who are kind of casually aware of that original game, or not aware of it at all. That being said, there are some new features here that are perhaps important if you are a total dork. And I don't mean that disparagingly. Let's be honest, I am a total dork as well. So if I go to, I'm opening up the line menu. If I go to line 1, then we have this clock menu. And what this basically allows us to do is schedule our buses based on different times of the day. So right now we have a 2-minute interval. I believe that's 2 minutes. I'm hoping it's not 2 hours. But again, this is something that I'm figuring out for myself because the game doesn't necessarily communicate that effectively, in my opinion. We might right now be running buses too frequently, and maybe that's causing us to lose money and run a bunch of empty buses. So maybe we want to increase the interval and start running it, every 3 minutes and 30 seconds instead. By the way, I have no idea what is up with like these double OLs, double OS, and etc. etc. I'm not sure if that means like small bus and like 30 is the maximum capacity of the bus. I'm a little bit confused, but we can also, tailor this for the morning rush, the evening, weekend, etc., 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 which is pretty cool. If these are 3.5 hour long buses, then I'm probably making a huge mistake, but in any case, whatever, we'll just do that for now. So timetables are a big feature that has been added in this game. Well, it's already been a long video, but let's mess around with a couple of other forms of public transportation just to show you what we've got going on here. As I told you, there are 5 of them. So I'm very, very bad. As far as I know, trolleys are basically just buses that require wires, so they probably cost you less in energy. Wow, why are students pissed off at me? But they cost you less in energy, but I've got to set up the wires on the road first, which is probably going to be a total clusterfuck for me. We'll try to build a metro at the end, but right now, why don't we just build a very simple C bus? So I'm not very good. I accidentally just created a water line. What do we want to do here? Again, it takes a while to get used to this interface. Okay, so we're gonna build a water bus depot. Let's zoom in a little bit. Why don't we put this over, maybe you want to go from here to here. This will just be like a nice casual kind of ferry ride that you can get on. And I think this will probably do a pretty good job of illustrating some problems that I have with this kind of interface in the game. So obviously the water depot has to be in the water, the water bus depot. But we also need to make sure that it's connected to the road in some way. Because if it's not, then people can't get to it, obviously, right? But now, I'm kind of looking at this and realizing that I don't think people can get to it. We can build roads, but this is where things start to get very tricky for me. Again, it might just me being an idiot. Or it might just be me being an idiot, but let's try to build a road that goes, like, out here. By the way, it just says city population has risen to 51,000. That is, like, a 2% increase in a day, which is, simultaneously pretty amazing, but also a little, indicative of how slowly things go in this game compared to, again, a game like SimCity. Not that they necessarily deserve comparison. We are getting some frame rate issues. That's merely a Fraps issue. Sometimes this game does get a little framey, but like I'm building this bus line here. Or this road here. I'm not sure if this is gonna help people actually get out here, but I tried at least. Let's build another one here and just make the world's most dangerous intersection. If I could actually get it to connect to this other road, which I probably cannot. Anyway. Alright, so I mean, this is just going to be a proof of concept, basically, that you can indeed build water buses. By the way, I should point out, I think the game looks real nice, especially considering it is, for lack of a better word, a budget title. Let's go to tools. We're going to construct some waypoints. So basically, the waypoints are just our water bus trip, like the path that it's going to take. So I'm just going to make it, a little bit meandering here, just to make sure people get a sweet view of this forest. I mean, if you're trying to take the water bus to work, what can I say? I think that's a silly decision. And we should be able to construct a pier over here. Somewhere, anyway. I guess we can construct it in the middle of the ocean if we see fit. Seems like kind of a silly decision. Why don't we just put it here, and maybe then we cannot build in the water. What are you talking about? Can't build in the water. I swear to God, I did this off camera, but this is a very realistic look at, my problem largely with Cities in Motion so far, which is just that, well, I guess we can build one here, which is largely just that, a lot of times I don't really understand what I'm doing, and that's partly my bad, but at the same time, I've also spent like 5 hours with the game. I played through the tutorial twice and failed at it both times. because it requires you to build a metro at the end, which I think is borderline impossible. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but at the same time, I wish it tutorialized a little bit more effectively. Not necessarily tutorialized more, because I appreciate, getting my feet wet in the sandbox mode. But at the same time, I just wish it communicated a little bit more effectively, shall we say. People are still not that stoked about me. So I'm going to abandon this water bus line. Again, this is why you want to start out playing in the sandbox with basically, unlimited money and no penalty. What's my coverage at here? Established 10% coverage, 10% completed. Does that mean I've established 1% coverage? I'm not totally sure here. For my final trick, I guess I'm going to try to build a metro line, and I'm going to explain why this has been super difficult for me so far. So metro, of course, I believe allows you to go underground, or you could build it like a, like a SkyTrain or a light rail type system. Do people actually know what the SkyTrain is outside of Vancouver? It's basically like our light rail system. It's the T, if you will, if you're familiar with, Pittsburgh's metro. In any case, we are going to build a metro station here. So we have a basic metro depot, and we're going to just establish this right here. If I can, I don't understand why it's kind of creating that big yellow line there. But we're going to throw that down right there. And actually that might have been a huge mistake because I don't see any tracks and it doesn't look like we're really reaching the road here. Let's try this again. Again, we have pretty much zero penalty right now, but obviously if you were doing this with limited amounts of money, you probably wouldn't be super stoked about that. So let's put our metro depot down here. Nobody's really paying attention to this area anyway. Now, I have never successfully been able to build a track from the metro depot to literally anywhere else in the game. I can see where the track is going. I can build, if I go to roads here, I can build metro track. There's no question about that. But metro track, is not supposed to go over the road, as you might expect. It's supposed to go, I believe, kind of out the ass end of the place here. So what I've kind of been doing in order to jerry-rig it is just deleting the depot and then trying to create my own track from here and then like rebuilding the depot on top of it. So we're gonna just start building metro track here. If I could successfully build, that's not the one we want. If I could successfully build a single metro track over the course of this video, I would be an insanely happy camper. So first things first, we're just gonna have this kind of come out, and why not create like a large increase in height there. Then we'll have it swing around. Again, this is super expensive, but unlimited money means we can do whatever we want. And all we're gonna do here is try to build a metro line connecting this part of the city to... Shit, man, I don't even know. I guess okay, here's what I'm gonna try to do. I'm just gonna try to create a very simple loop that is gonna connect that part of the city to this part of the city. So we're just gonna page down here. I've managed to build one successful stop. So if I just put this down like beside the road here, is this, okay, height offset 4 meters. We want height offset 0 meters. And we're just gonna put that down there. And build it like so. Now, I'm just gonna see if it might be possible for us to build a metro stop going, sure, this way. Ah, good, it did build on the sidewalk. So we do have a successful stop. Now we're just gonna try to get it to loop back around. Again, this might seem very simple. This would be a colossal success for me if it actually managed to work. So let's page up a little bit. And we're just going to take this back around. Again, staggering amounts of money. We've definitely spent on the order of, several times our original budget. There's where our depot used to be. So we're just going to do like a big kind of swooping turn at the end here to try to bring us back around to that original track, which, again, may or may not be possible. And I might already be making a massive mistake, but let's page down here. I mean, at the very least, if you're watching this and you're saying, like, wow, you're an idiot, you can probably completely understand why I've spent most of my time building buses and tram lines, because those are things I actually, understand. Starting to realize that this might not work at all, as I just, put this down here and realize that we can't actually reconnect to that existing track for whatever reason. Again, I might seem like an idiot right now. Keep in mind, as I zoom out here, oh man, the game's gotten a little framey. Keep in mind, they don't tutorialize metro line building at all. They tutorialize everything else in a way that's effective, but building a metro line, which is, one of the hallmarks of a great city, has not been easy for me so far. Now, we'll try to, I mean, this is not going to work by any stretch of the imagination, and it's become kind of a huge clusterfuck. But, if we could just build a metro line that then connects to this, maybe we could at least get something going. Will this work? No, it will not. Okay. Again, I kind of wish it just made things a little bit easier on me. But that's a fairly good proof or representative series of gameplay, like a half hour of gameplay that's spent with Cities in Motion. When I stick to just building easy things like bus lines, tram lines, etc., then it works fairly well. Otherwise, I get out of my element very, very quickly. Keep in mind, this is a very, very niche kind of game. But if you're looking for something that's going to simulate modern public transit, this might be your only option. I'm not totally sure about that. Again, I have to reiterate, this is not a city builder. It's not without flaws. I don't think it communicates how to do a lot of the more advanced stuff in the game effectively, and kind of relies on user experimentation to figure that out, which is not necessarily a huge negative if you're the kind of person who's way into self-learning and doesn't mind dealing with a little bit of frustration. But at the same time, by the way, as far as I know, there is no undo button, which would make things a lot easier and a lot less frustrating when you make a mistake. But at the same time, this is only going to be $20. It's pretty cheap, and if you're into this sort of thing, I have to feel that this is basically exactly what you're looking for. For what it's worth, I've had a reasonably good time just restricting myself to building bus lines and tram lines. Like, I can kind of zone out in this game for, you know, an hour or two, until I get bored and realize that I'm just kind of connecting the dots here. But if you're the kind of person who's way into that, then I would strongly encourage you to check out Cities in Motion 2. There is going to be a link in the video description to the store page on Steam, so if you're interested, I encourage you to check that out. But in any case, thank you guys for watching. Let's look at Cities in Motion 2. My overall thoughts, certainly a mixed bag. I feel like it's a good game that just doesn't present itself as well as is kind of necessary for people to realize that it's a good game, myself included. I feel like if they held my hand a little bit more with respect to creating the more advanced forms of public transportation, particularly the metro line, which I can't work for the life of me. If they made that a little bit easier to figure out, then I would probably like it a lot more. I like it enough as is, but certainly it's the kind of thing that is a little bit more difficult to recommend than I would have originally anticipated, given the kind of scope of the game. But again, in any case, thank you guys for watching. There will be a link in the video description to the store page if you're interested. As always, for the 8th time, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.